Good morning, Bitcoiners. Overnight, Bitcoin exploded to a new all time high, $123,000. More than $1.3 billion in short positions were wiped out in under 60 seconds, propelling it through that dreaded 120K sell wall. The long, choppy grind of early 2025 is over. And Bitcoin has officially flipped Amazon to become the fifth largest asset on planet Earth. But there's more to this rally than meets the eye. Behind the headlines, the US dollar is collapsing, down over 10% on the year. This is the worst start since Nixon killed the gold standard in the 1970s. So while Americans are celebrating $120,000 Bitcoin, it still hasn't broken all-time highs in euros or Swiss francs that were set back in January. What we're seeing isn't just Bitcoin rising, it's the world reserve currency falling fast. But sooner or later, every fiat currency on earth will bend its knee to the king, Bitcoin. So yes, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rob Wallace, and today I am very grateful to be joined by none other than the man here, co-founder of Bitcoin IRA, Chris Klein. Chris, how are you doing today?
It's a glorious Monday, is it not, Rob?
It feels good to wake up to new all-time highs. We've been ready for this. We've been waiting for this, and now it is finally here. Yes. How are you feeling?
It's been a busy weekend for me. Obviously, watching the prices move feels a little bit. I hate to say the word vindication, but I know about a week ago I was on Yahoo Finance, and we had several other moments in time last week where we were quoted of why is this happening, and my and kind of my first response was, well, we told you this was going to happen. Like this. We've been banging. You and I have been banging on this drum for years. I'm 13 years into this. These are the moments in time that it starts to all make sense. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. The world seems to be finally catching on, right? Last time back in 2020, we had a lot of money printing, but few of the institutions, really none other than MicroStrategy, really got into the party. But now we're seeing, of course, the corporations, the ETFs, the sovereign wealth funds, and even nation states on the most high federal level are getting interested in Bitcoin. So we have lots of headlines to jump into today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is the Bitcoin News Weekly live stream. So what do? We break down our newsletter, Bitcoin News Weekly. It comes out every Monday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, straight into your inbox. We've got all the biggest headlines of the last week distilled down into one easy to read newsletter. Title of this week's edition is Speculative Attack on the Dollar Ignites New Bitcoin All-Time Highs. And yes, it is now the fifth largest asset on earth, overtaking Amazon. I'm sure Jeff Bezos is a little worried about that, but he is also friends with Saylor, and Saylor's been on his boat, so I'm sure Jeff has some Bitcoin too. Yes.
I was kind of noticing the list too. To get to second place isn't a very far run right now. I mean, obviously, gold is the beast we have to the hurdle we have to overtake. But the next couple, Apple and the market cap for them and Nvidia, like it's not that far off. We're right there.
So yeah, we got the list down here at the bottom of the newsletter. I mean,
Yeah.
Nvidia's a 4 trillion beast, right? That's the first company to ever reach a market cap of 4 trillion. Just did that last week, and we are at this was last night, right, when Bitcoin was still below Amazon, but now we're above it. We're at $2.4 trillion, and yeah, we've got to double our market cap, a little bit less than that, to get to 4 trillion. But we'll be knocking on gold's doorstep sooner than later, right? So it's pretty amazing stuff. Lots of headlines to dive into. And before we get into all these amazing things happening in the world of Bitcoin, I want to talk to you about Bitcoin IRA. This is your company. You've been at this, as you said, for 13 years, and you are helping Americans retire on Bitcoin. So tell us, how does that work?
So first, let's address the problem that we noticed. My partners and I, about 13 years ago, and even before that, we realized that we're in a retirement crisis in America, and that's since been vindicated by data from groups like Northwest Mutual, put this report out right before COVID, where they asked Americans how much do they need to comfortably retire. And this was 2018, and the average amount people said was about $550,000. Fast forward just 3 years and after COVID and all the money printing and the cost and all those things, it jumped to $1.5 million. So not only do people realize that their retirement's going to cost them much more, at the same time, people are not saving as much as they should be. That we have, I think, 50% of Americans, just over 50% of Americans, are one paycheck missed or one emergency crisis away from near bankruptcy or bigger problems. And on top of that, 401ks have kind of dissipated. We're a gig economy now. Guys like you and I, Rob, I don't have a 401k. I mean, I offer my employees 401ks, but most folks are not getting that corporate match of those things. And we're also, and I remember telling you this in Vegas together, this is in our grandfather's economy. We can't just buy 2 or 3 stocks and hold them for 50 years and retire. We have to be on the cutting edge of things. And so it came across our desk back in 2015. Is it possible to put Bitcoin in a retirement account? And we, of course, accepted the challenge and figured out a way to make that happen and put the pieces together. And since then, we have 14 billion with a B assets under custody, over 200,000 users. And our platform allows you to do all kinds of great things. You have 85 different coins. I know this is Bitcoin news, so there might be some maxis out here, but there is plenty of other assets in the crypto space that are available if should you choose those. And we just recently, this past week, we might dive into this later, we just launched our staking program with Cardano and Ethereum. So, and this is kind of the financialization that I've been talking about of the asset class. We've got legitimization, which came from ETFs, institutions, et cetera. And now we're looking at, I think the next evolution is going to be financialization of the asset class. But that's who we are. We're American born, American raised, a proud group of folks that can help you take languishing assets. Either you can start a new IRA, you can roll over an old 401k or employee sponsored plan, and you can transfer existing funds from an existing IRA and put them into crypto in a direct investment. So this isn't like an ETF or a proxy certificate. You're buying one-to-one held in segregated insured wallets for you that you can distribute down the road. Now we're starting to get into the conversation of, is Bitcoin a contrarian trade that I'm just going against the market, or are we now a consensus trade? And let's fast forward to when you and I are retired in like 20, 30 years. Do you really want to sell off your crypto, your Bitcoin IBIT, and take dollars or whatever currencies at play then? Or would you prefer to distribute your real Bitcoin for use in your spending? So a very exciting program and platform we've built for our folks.
Yeah, it's amazing. We, especially as people in their 20s and 30s, the idea of retirement, we're all pretty certain that Social Security is not going to be there by the time that we're ready to start collecting those checks. We need a plan for ourselves. We need to be self-directed, and putting Bitcoin in a vehicle that allows you to minimize the tax burden just seems simple and smart and the right thing to do. So if you take a portion of your stack, put it away, know that you're not going to touch it for decades, that thing's going to grow, of course, in nominal value. And just to avoid that tax hit at the end of the day when you need it in retirement just is really just
well,
seems
these are
like
the tools the government gave us in the 1970s. And when we tap in here in a little bit about what's going on with the US dollar, I want to do a little history lesson about the last 100 years of the US dollar. And in the 1970s, 2 things happened that are very interesting. First was the Nixon shock, which we'll talk about. And the second was Edward J. Roth and other members of Congress gave us IRAs, individual retirement plans, because we were in a savings crisis in America. And they were trying to incentivize us to put money aside for the long term. And they benefited us with tax-deferred savings, tax-free savings, and you can trade all day long without having capital gains taxes. So it's an exciting space to be in. If you really are a believer of crypto and Bitcoin, this is a place where you want to put part of your stack, like you said.
absolutely. And it's a dollar story, right? America has the world reserve currency, and it's treated us as Americans well over the last century, but it's losing value, and it's losing value every year. And I think let's start with that, right? Let's talk about what's going on here. Here's a chart that really lays it all out. This guy, Nick Dobos, don't know him, but he said, y'all know that Bitcoin hitting $120,000 is mainly due to the dollar plummeting, right? And as you can see, it is having, it's what I read yesterday, its worst start of the year since 1973. And of course, the dollar was taken off the gold standard in 1971. So, yeah, to have the world reserve currency be down by 10% in 6 months, something's going on here, right, Chris?
Absolutely. And let's to really understand history, let's go backwards about another 30 or 40 years. So it's the end of World War II, and there's a lot of things happening, but the winners of World War II got to set the new rules. And one of the things that happened was the Bretton Woods Conference in the 1940s in New Hampshire. Bretton Woods, that's why it's called Bretton Woods. It's a ski resort and it's a beautiful place. I've never been there, but it's named after that. And what they did there was they basically told the world, hey, we're the victors. So every currency is going to be pegged to the US dollar. The US dollar is going to be pegged to gold, and every other currency is going to be pegged to the US dollar, which really kind of declares currency dominance. And there were good reasons for this because, I mean, Europe was in shambles. Other parts of the world were in shambles, and there was so much debt that was created. Everybody that was at war with each other for 5-6 years, they were all spending money they didn't have, including us in the United States. It was a military-industrial complex that we were working off of. And if we lost, somebody else would have set these rules too. So now, 1944, no, 45, I can't remember the exact year. Now the rules are dollars pinged to gold at $35 an ounce. The rest of the world's currencies are pinged to the US dollar. And these are the rules. We also established the International Monetary Fund in that conference, as well as what is now known as the World Bank. It was called something else at the time. So that was kind of the standard up until what you were just talking about, what's called the Nixon shock in 1971. And basically, here's what happened. We kept growing and growing, and we were kind of growing our currency and our M2 supply to a point where Nixon didn't have a choice. This wasn't one of those, like, because I know most of the time people say Nixon, we think of Tricky Dick, we think of Watergate, we think of all these things, but he had no choice in the Nixon shock. And funny story, last Veterans Day, I was down in Orange County, and I actually went with one of my cousins to see the Nixon Museum, because he's down there in San Clemente. So I went to see the Nixon Presidential Museum, and I walk right in. And of course, the history nerd in me, I asked the lady at the front, I was like, can you point me to where the Nixon shock stuff is? It's not in the museum anywhere. So arguably one of the greatest moments in monetary policy in the last 40 years. There's no highlight of it. There's no record. They got everything about Vietnam, Watergate, all the other pieces of Nixon's administration. Zero about the gold standard because he was boxed into it. We were getting to a point where we had so much dollars out there that if somebody was to call those debts, basically say, I'm France and I've got $1 trillion of US dollars and I want my gold because it was pinged to gold, you could convert it, was convertible. Boom. We were going to be in a big trouble if that happened. If one or two countries decided, hey, I don't want dollars anymore, I want to convert them to gold, we didn't have enough gold to back it, is basically what happened. So he had to take us off the gold standard, which changed the entire monetary policy again, where now we're sitting in floating currencies. Everybody's floating relative to each other. Now, albeit the US dollar has maintained dominance through that process up until, I think, right now. I think this is another milestone, watershed moment in currency relations globally. And our administration currently, President Trump and the administration.
Oh, we lost Chris real quick. But he's right. We are at the moment of having to face the reality. We printed so much money over the last 50 years plus that now we are at a turning point. And that means that people are looking for alternatives. The treasury demand from countries around the world is going down. They want less dollars. And what we Chris, you there?
Oh no! Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, well the camera, I'm not sure. My team is scrambling over here, but I'm sorry, folks. I know that it was probably fun to see me, but we'll keep rolling here.
Yeah.
So what I was saying is that I think the Trump administration, among others, are kind of making it pretty clear that we're in another watershed moment where we basically are sitting here with we have treasuries out the wazoo owned by foreign entities, and if they were to call those debts or they were to try to exchange those treasuries, we'd be in big trouble as a U.S. dollar dominance. The only thing holding us together is OPEC, which you have to convert your dollar to any currency has to convert to the dollar in order to buy oil in this world today. And that's starting to show cracks with BRICS and other things that are happening. So sorry, I lost my train of thought there because everything was rolling really good. Sorry, Rob, but that's really, I think we're at this point when you look at history of the last 100 years, we're now at a point where the administration and others are saying the dollar 10% drop is nothing. I mean, this could be even worse across the next few months. We have some big interest payments on some big debts coming, and the Trump administration and others are telling us indirectly, whether through X or through speeches, bet on gold and bet on Bitcoin hard and bet on crypto because this is the future of monetary policy. And I think this week with the Stable Act, the Stablecoin Act, the Genius Act, et cetera, this is crypto week, right? We're going to walk away from this, and probably our kids are going to be talking about this week in 30 years at some point in history books. This will be a week that will change the direction in which our country is heading.
Oh, that's interesting to think about. Yeah. I mean, August 71 was when they took us off the gold standard, and it'll be interesting to see if July 25 is the month that history and historians look back on and say that is when the baton was passed from the dollar to Bitcoin. But of course, I mean, there's so much here to touch upon in terms of monetary history, because with the world reserve currency, we're also forced into Triffin's dilemma, right? Where there's more demand for the dollar outside of our country. And so that means that we need to produce a lot of it. But that means also that our manufacturing gets less competitive, right? It costs more to manufacture within the United States, and other countries have weaker currencies, so they can manufacture for cheaper, and so that forces all the factories to move abroad. And so now we're seeing the administration say, hey, we want to bring those factories back. We want to be more self-reliant. And in order to do so, we're going to need to weaken the currency to make our manufacturing more competitive, as well as to make this debt burden more sustainable. We have $37 trillion worth of debt. The interest payment on that alone is $1 trillion a year and growing. And so one way to deal with that is to weaken the currency so that it's easier to pay for the debt. But yes, while Chris and his team figure out the video stuff, we might as well dive right into our issue. We are here, of course. Bitcoin News Weekly, the newsletter, comes out every Monday morning, and we are here with the top headlines to investigate. So up top, we have our adoption section, and we have the first headline: since 2020, 47 countries have expanded access to Bitcoin, while only 4 have tightened restrictions. 34 nations have approved Bitcoin ETFs or ETPs, and US banks are now permitted to custody Bitcoin. So this is a great chart put together by the team over at River, and you can see here there's a lot of good stuff going on, right? A lot of green. So I mean, we've got countries like Argentina. They legalized Bitcoin payments in 2023. Of course, the ETFs were approved in America in 2024, and now banks in 2025 have been allowed to custody Bitcoin. Where have we seen access be restricted? Well, Venezuela banned Bitcoin mining in 2024 because, despite the fact that they are a energy behemoth, their grid is not that strong. So Bitcoin miners, of course, consume a lot of energy, and that should be fine in a country with energy abundance like Venezuela. But the grid cannot really support Bitcoin miners, so they've been the easy targets for the Venezuelan government to cover up their ineptitude by singling out Bitcoin miners and trying to shut them down in order to preserve the grid. Also, another country that banned mining with an authoritarian bent is China. Of course, in 2021, this caused global hash rate to drop by over 50%, as well as the Bitcoin price to drop by 50%, going from over $60,000 to around 29,000 in July of 2021. So Bitcoin crashed 50% in the middle of that bull run, but then was able to quickly recover over the next 6 months and set a new all-time high of 69,000 towards the end of 2021. And since then, of course, China had close to a majority of the hash rate back in 21. But since the Chinese mining ban, America has stepped up to fill the void. And now America produces over 30% of global Bitcoin hash rate. All right, looks like we got Chris back here. Chris, how you doing?
Hey, oh my goodness. I'm sorry, man. A good thing I have the crew here. We just changed out cameras. Not sure what happened there. But apologies to you and the audience because that's not my standard operating procedure there.
No worries, man. It's nice you have like a F1 pit crew right there to swap out the cameras and,
They're
and
pretty
keep it
fast
going.
too, man. Kudos to our boy Bogdan. If anybody ever knows him, he's amazing.
Cool. Yeah. So we were just discussing the fact that since 2020, we have seen the access to Bitcoin just really blossom across the world,
Yeah.
right? And only a few countries, four of them, in fact, have restricted access. Venezuela, China, Afghanistan here. And so, yeah, Bitcoin adoption is growing very quickly, and we are seeing it's really become part of the world financial system. 34 countries have approved Bitcoin ETFs, and now the US allows banks to custody Bitcoin. Quite the change over the last 5 years. What has surprised you the most in this financial world accepting Bitcoin over the last 5 years?
You know what surprised me the most is that this is so if you look back 4 or 5 years ago, when Turkey had a currency crisis, when Greece had a currency crisis, when what you saw in El Salvador, most of the adoption was driven around an immediate need. We have hyperinflation happening. Our currency is failing. These things. So, thus, where do people run to? Which was Bitcoin, because it's more transportable, it's more fungible than gold. What's happening now is I think it's a combination of there's a currency crisis that nobody's talking about, and people are running towards the hedge that we've been. You and I have been talking. I remember the first time I called Bitcoin a hedge or a store of value. Everybody thought I was nuts because of its volatility. But it's a finite supply. It's a very scarce asset. Our generation has never seen scarcity. We were born in abundance, right? I was born in '85, and pretty much it's been just more of everything. And I've watched more and more dollars be printed, which makes things more expensive. Um, and I think what's happening now is a precursor to some potential realities that are coming to play. When you see this kind of adoption, it's interesting too when you look at the places that aren't adopting too, which are kind of like the last man standing of draconian dictator type communist societies, whatever derivative they are along the political spectrum. These are places where they don't necessarily like this. I mean, they're also, I bet you overlaid the map of internet access on top of it, it'd probably be very similar, right? And I've always said since 2016 that Bitcoin is the people's currency, is the democratization of money. And so it's very interesting to watch this happen where it was Bitcoin was the backup plan, and now it's the plan where we've gone from contrarian to consensus. And I watched my good friend Anthony Pompliano this morning on Squawk, and he said it really well is welcome to the greatest show on Wall Street. I think welcome to the greatest show in the world is what I would add to it, is what's happening right now. Because if the U.S. is leading this, and this week with a lot of the things we're doing with legislation, we're staking our claim in the future. We're saying, all right, we're not going to fight this. We fought this for almost 8 years. Every way we could, between shutting down advertisers and not making it possible for crypto guys to have bank accounts. And I mean, we tried everything, and now it shifted. The politics said, no, you know what? We're going to go all in. We're leaning into this. the rest of the world will follow. They just like they followed in 1944 with Bretton Woods, just like they followed in 1971 with Nixon shock. They will follow what we're doing here. And what's that going to do, Rob? The big question for me is 21 million Bitcoin. What's going to happen next? Are we really going to start getting down to that divisibility factor where owning 0.1 Bitcoin is life-changing versus today having one Bitcoin is really solid? Where do you think we're going to end up there, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, you do the math, and if we divided to 21 million by all the people on Earth, everybody would have around 250,000 sats, right?
Yep.
And it's crazy to look at the numbers now. I mean, I remember at the bottom of the bear market in 22 when we hit around 15, 16,000, and you could get around 6,000 sats for $1. Now it's 850, right? I mean,
Yep.
that we're getting closer and closer to sat cent parity, where one sat is worth 1 cent of $1. And I mean, this train is not slowing down. And there's still so many people who need Bitcoin, right? The word really hasn't gotten to mass adoption yet. I mean, of course, we're seeing it more as we saw on Squawk Box this morning. Anthony Pompliano, they're talking about it on CNBC a bunch, and it is being talked about in the halls of power in DC. But still, for the average person, this is, as you said, this is the people's money, and more people need to get that first investment into Bitcoin, get their first million sats, right?
Get off zero. Yep. Get
Invest
off zero.
$1,000.
Get some exposure. Yep.
Get
Absolutely.
off zero.
It's funny. Remember when I told you in Vegas, what was that, a couple months ago now, that I felt like the FOMO retail wave would kick in around 120 to 130.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last, say, 72 hours, the number of phone calls or text messages I've gotten out of the woodwork of people not saved in my phone. They may be family, they may be friends. It's starting to smell a little bit like 21 again, right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually got a call from my primo Ramirez. My wife is Latina, and so I'm the one white boy in a whole family of 385 amazing Mexicans that I love, and they're like they just embrace me. And so Primo Ramirez calls me. He's in Vegas last night, and his PieGow dealer wants to roll over her 401k to Bitcoin IRA, and I'm like, okay, I think it's starting again. This is what it feels like. And unfortunately, when you and I were banging the drum in April at 76,000, a lot of people weren't paying attention. And more people, this is just the nature of the beast. And it's institutions, it's retail, it's everywhere in between. They've watched Bitcoin take so many ups and downs that they don't necessarily have the intestinal fortitude for it. And that's why dollar cost averaging and hodling and just getting that exposure off zero is so important, because it takes that emotion out of the process.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have a feeling that we're going to have a very interesting rest of the third quarter here. And remember, we're right around that peak for halving, right? We're about 110 days, I think, away from what would be called the peak for the halving over the last few cycles. That's going to hit right around September. So it could be an epic into the year. In April, I had said on my first interview, I made a bold claim, and I don't normally do this. Last July, when I was at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, I said, we're going to hit 100K by Christmas Day. And at that time, it was about 62,000. And people said, I don't know. And sure enough, we hit it just about 2 weeks before, right after, I think, December 12th. So I got a little bit more bold. I guess I got a little bit more gutsy in April of this year. And I said, I think 180K is the mark that I'm comfortable, conservative mark. Yeah, could it go over that? I think the bare minimum is we see 180K this year, but it's going to take some FOMO, some retail waves, and that click of scarcity when you've got all this money from institutions flowing in, and now you get a wave of retail emotions. And we're at 120, 123. We could the last time we were at all-time highs, we broke out 30%. So from November, when we hit the 70 was the all-time high, and then we got to 100. So 140 is out there. And what happens after that? I told Yahoo Finance last week, they were grilling me. Well, that doesn't make sense. How could you go up 66% in the next 6 months? And I'm like, do you know Bitcoin? This is the beast of Bitcoin. This is what happens. And so I always say it's never too late, never too early, but dollar cost averaging is critical on the way in and the way out. So there may be some people here that are starting to hit their target numbers. I know a lot of Bitcoin believers like me or hodlers tell $1 million, maybe $2 million a coin. But if you do need to take some profits off the table, DCA out as well. That's a critical thing. You don't just say, oh my God, I hit my mark, I'm going to sell everything. Because when it goes and jumps another 20, 30%, you're going to be kicking yourself. Just like you got into Bitcoin, get out in the same fashion. That takes the emotion out of the play.
Yeah, and talking about cycles and comparing this one to prior cycles, I think this chart here by APSK, he
Yep.
makes great visuals, and this one compares the last four cycles, right? And so we are right now this orange line, and it's interesting to compare to 2021, as I was saying just before, we had crashed with the China mining ban from 60 plus thousand down to 29,000. And then we
Yep.
ramped back up to 69. And so it really seems as if we are entering this exponential period of the cycle, right? The last 6 months of the year here, and APSK projects at least 200,000. Others are saying three, fours, and of course, there's always the talk that we're never going to see a bear market again. This institutions are here. This time is different, and
Winter is always coming, is
yeah.
what I say. Is winter is always coming to my family, friends, investors, my staff. We, as much as you enjoy, like Friday through Sunday was a great feeling as a Bitcoin believer. But don't ever forget, winter is always coming. Price discovery equals more volatility always. So while we might dabble with 130, 140, maybe even 150 in this short term, maybe the next few months, there will be corrections. That's a reality in this space. These charts show it over four cycles. There is no straight linear line up for any asset class, in particular for Bitcoin.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, could we see a 50% drawdown in the middle of this next 6 months and then go even higher? Perhaps. You really never know with Bitcoin. And of course, it's good to have that long-term view, 5, 10 years. Just know that you're buying it to sit on it, to watch it grow. And you haven't been proven wrong if you've done that in any one of these cycles in the past. So it'll be an interesting 6 months no matter what. That is definitely the lesson that we have to share with you today. Cool. So yeah, going back into adoption, one thing I wanted to touch upon, some really cool news over the last week is Jack Dorsey. He vibe coded last weekend. He had a little vibe coding project, and he released BitChat, a new offline Bluetooth mesh app supporting peer-to-peer encrypted messaging and enabling offline Bitcoin transactions. Perfect for disaster scenarios. So he put together this app that allows you to communicate without the internet. So it uses Bluetooth. Everybody's modern phones has Bluetooth, and so you can connect with the mesh networking and send encrypted messages. And this also allows you to send a Bitcoin transaction. It won't be, of course, verified on the blockchain until you are connected again to the internet. But if you're in a disaster scenario and you cannot get out, connect to the world without internet, this allows you a lifeline. And I think this is really cool. I mean, some other people were using meshnet technology at the protests in Hong Kong when they shut down the internet
Yep.
there. This allows you to communicate to other people on the same plane too, when you don't have internet. And as we saw just this week, there's flooding all over this country, right? People don't have internet connection. This would allow you to go on the app, see if there's anybody else on this application and talk to them and send out your location or anything else that you could possibly need. So some
Makes
very
me think
cool.
a little bit, Rob. I never actually watched Mr. Robot. I just didn't have time, but I saw it hit Netflix, so I binged like a season of it. And there's a point in time where the brownouts, and then the power starts to drop in New York City, and it really makes you think of what happens to society when those basic necessities we take for advantage. I mean, I remember I was in I just recently moved from California to Arizona since about March. I've been through the process. And part of what drove me was the experience we had in Los Angeles. We were in Sherman Oaks with the fires. We had a big transponder go down in our neighborhood. I lived, and we were about 2 weeks without power, internet, etc. Obviously, we had the privilege to be able to leave. We came actually to Scottsdale. I had a podcast interview, so I just brought the family with, and we got an Airbnb, and we were able to relocate to another place. But but it makes you think about like, what does society do in these moments? And kudos to Dorsey for, I mean, obviously Bluetooth, you still have to have power to have Bluetooth, right? But it's better than a reliance on a Wi-Fi network. Very cool. This is the stuff that happens when you just let, instead of put the chains on crypto and put like they've done for the last 4 years, and now we've broken those chains and we're free to innovate and create value for Americans. I'm really excited to see what comes next. I know that we're Bitcoin news. I'm Bitcoin IRA, but like I said, we have 80 coins. We just launched staking in Ethereum and for Cardano and Ethereum. We have more staking coming. There are so many new evolutions coming now that we have this ability. We're not fighting an SEC or a CFTC or an administration that is just 100% anti. I mean, they had just a giant check mark of no. Now we can innovate again. And there are some brilliant minds in this space. I mean, just absolutely brilliant. And another generation to come. Most of the kids coming out of college these days are already coding and working with blockchain. They're working in Web 4, Web 5, and beyond. It's kind of like the 90s again, but with a whole new ballgame.
Yeah, lots of things to be excited about, lots of innovation happening. Of course, AI is opening up a whole entire new playground for people to experiment in and just take ideas like Jack had and to implement them. You don't even have to know to learn how to code, right? You can just go out, have an idea, work with AI,
Just be nice to the robots, right? That's what everybody says. Be nice to the robots because you never know what might happen.
be sure to say thank you when you're done sending your message.
Yeah, I always do. You know, I saw a story come out though, Rob, where the fact that we're saying thank you to the robots is actually taking power away from the grid more, because like it's an extra question. You know, I mean, my ChatGPT and we have a very intimate relationship. Like it's whenever I have like an interview or anything like this, I always go and I talk to him beforehand, just like, here's what my thoughts are. Am I missing anything? And I always say please and thank you every time. And I guess there's a story that we don't need to do that, but you know what? I've seen Terminator. I'm going to say thank you to the robots. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also funny that if you threaten the AI chatbot, it seems to perform better. They've done tests.
So that's such an interesting. We're at this intersection. So AI and crypto are married, even if they don't want to admit it yet. They are a married concept. So we do one of the things we do at Bitcoin IRA is we call every client on their birthday and on their anniversary date of their account with us. And now 200,000 users. That's about 500,000 calls. I can't staff for that with humans. That's almost an impossibility. So we've worked and taught robots, AI chat, to make the calls. I think their names are Stephanie, Lisa, Brian, like they have names. And the first run of it in Q4 of last year, we started learning. And then the first quarter this year, we started making them compete against each other, and we were rewarding them with a coin. And so it was just like if you were an employee getting paid. We all go for 9 to 5 every day. We get that chunk of change, that fiat currency, and we move on. We started doing the same thing. And then one of my friends that's heavy in AI goes, you got to threaten him. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, you got to let him know that if he doesn't perform at the level of everybody else, you're going to unplug him. And then boom, whole new explosion of growth. And it scared me. I don't like to threaten the robots because I don't know what they're capable of, but it's true. They're just in their own way. They're a lot like us. They like to be rewarded, but they also there's a risk reward relationship for them as well. And this intersection is going to be so interesting to see what happens with AI and crypto over the next. I think it's going to accelerate quickly. I don't think it's going to be one of those that's going to take 5 or 7 years. I think we're going to be talking about integrations, you and I, maybe even this year, that are blowing our minds of things that are happening. Gronk just got an update. I'm sure they're all competing with each other now to be the next best thing.
Yeah, it's very exciting times, and I think Bitcoin is going to be a large part of the story, right? If it is an autonomous agent, what else would it want to be paid in other than the world's
it doesn't want dirty dollars.
It doesn't want
paper.
No.
I mean, actually, I have here in the drawer. There's only one U.S. currency that is actually going up. My buddy gave this to me for my birthday. I turned 40, and it's $2 bills. It's a stack of $2 bills they got. This is the only U.S. currency that is actually going up in value because they stopped making them. Sounds like scarcity to me, doesn't it, Rob? That's what I always like to bring that out. I also have one back here. I have a $100 bill from 1913, the year that the Federal Reserve was created, and it's also a $1 bill that's worth well more than $1, because it's scarce. And when you abuse something and you dilute something so much, this is what happens. It loses value over time.
Absolutely. And so to fight against that, we need Bitcoin, right? And so now that we're about halfway through the show, I want to give a shout out to all the 1,674 people tuning in live. Thank you so much for being a part of this. We really appreciate you. And right now is a good time to also say thank you to our number one lead sponsor here. We have Rhino Bitcoin. Rhino is really awesome. Great app, great place to purchase your Bitcoin. With it, you can do everything that you need. Buy or sell instantly. It's an app built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. You can send sats anywhere in the Lightning Network. You can withdraw straight to cold storage. You can turn your sats into gift cards, and you can even link to a Casa multisig in one sleek interface. So your security, your storage is taken care of. And Rhino, they're just warming up. Soon you'll be able to pay bills, borrow against your Bitcoin, and stack for retirement without even leaving the app. So go ahead right now, download Rhino at rhinobitcoin.com or just tap the link below in the description. Use the code Bitcoin News and Rhino will drop you $10 of Bitcoin free straight into your wallet, into your account today. So secure your stack with Rhino and let's get back to the show. So, Chris, want to talk next about Bitcoin. It's on the world stage, right? People are talking about it. Everybody either has a good opinion of it, a bad opinion of it. And one interesting thing that we've seen recently is El Salvador, right? They've been stacking Bitcoin every single day. They add a Bitcoin to their reserve. They now have over $700 million worth of Bitcoin, 6,000 plus coins. But it is making some people unhappy. And you can see here, US Democratic senators want to sanction El Salvador over their Bitcoin actions, saying that it allows them to bypass sanctions. So we have this story over here on the bitcoinnews.com website. A group of U.S. Senate Democrats is pushing for new sanctions against El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele, citing human rights abuses, corruption, and the country's aggressive Bitcoin push. So the bill was introduced by Democratic senators, right? And they want to clarify how much public money has Bukele administration spent buying Bitcoin, which exchanges were used for these transactions, what are the government's digital wallet addresses, who has access to these wallets, is Bitcoin being used to circumvent international sanctions, and are there signs of corruption or misuse of digital assets? So, yes, of course, El Salvador made a big splash when they announced their Bitcoin law back in 2021. And now, 4 years later, the US government wants some answers. Do you think that the US government is right to ask these questions? Do they have any jurisdiction whatsoever over El Salvador and their Bitcoin dealings?
Oh, man. Short answer, absolutely not. And I actually did a piece for NASDAQ about 4 years ago talking about this concept in El Salvador because I thought I think it's incredible. If you look at the history, I'm a student of international history. And so if you look at the history of El Salvador, not only has it been plagued with coups after coups, not to mention one we created back in the 60s as our CIA, which has been released, but also natural disasters. They're a very volcanic area. And so whether it was a government coup or a volcano erupting, they just the minute they get their feet on the ground, it gets wiped out from underneath them every single time. And when I saw this happening, I never expected El Salvador to be the place, but it just makes sense. You've got currency that's worthless, crime out the wazoo. Really, I mean, you are a banana republic in the eyes of the global world, abused by colonialism, abused by a lot of things. The history books show the truth around this, and decide to step up and say, you know what, we're going to do things differently. One of the things I love the most, not just the actions of the president there and making this bold shift to not a reserve currency, but this is the currency in El Salvador. They are using it on a regular daily basis and it's brought stability. You have birthright issues, kids that are growing up in are being born there are now they are bestowed a piece of Bitcoin as their future planning, which is something that President Trump's trying to do, is create for kids being born in the U.S. some kind of savings plan that's built and held for 30 years for them or however long they need. But the way that they turn the tables on natural disasters, I thought was really cool, because they're using the geothermal power from the volcanoes, because volcanoes are, even whether if they're erupting or not, there's an immense amount of geothermal power around them. That's where they're mining this bit. That's where they're getting the energy to mine these Bitcoins. They're not on some grid. They're not relying on some power company. They're using what has been used against them for years, geothermal power that becomes eruptions, to mine Bitcoin. And it's just very interesting to me. And it doesn't matter whether it's Democrats or Republicans to me. The meddling in these places is what caused this. If you look back at history, the United States has meddled in so many places, whether it's sub-Saharan Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, these places. And there are winners and losers to that meddling and that intervention. And El Salvador has been a loser of that intervention for decades and decades. It's very interesting that when you look at those bullet points, what are the wallet addresses? Who has control of them? This is a play of also the influence of, we talked about Bretton Woods in 1944, the IMF, the World Bank. Argentina tried to do this like literally months after El Salvador years ago. And the IMF and the World Bank came in and said, if you do this, we're cutting all support to you. And of course, Argentina backed down. And what they have over the next 2 years, hyperinflation in the 4 digits. We talk about inflation bothering us at 6% here in the US. Imagine 1,000% inflation on our currency. And now they've now elected, since then, another president that's going to take them back to this conversation table about Bitcoin. This is overreach, in my opinion. We should focus domestically of what we have a lot to deal with here. We should applaud this growth. This behavior reminds me a lot of McNamara in Southeast Asia in the 1960s. He had this blinded vision that if Vietnam fell, then the rest of Southeast Asia would become communist. And we can never prove that theory right or wrong, but we know that hundreds of thousands of US soldiers died as a result of it. Now there's this spread of Bitcoinism, the orange spread, right? The great orange spread that's happening across the world. And it's starting in places like El Salvador, and it's spreading across Central and South America. It's starting in places like Zimbabwe and spreading across Africa. It's starting in places like Turkey and Greece and spreading across these areas. Embrace it. If there's anything that history has shown me, is you're not going to fight something like this. Like, I think the headline that you guys put for the image on this show today is, you can't stop it now. You can't stop it here in the US. You're not going to stop it in other places. This is just a foolish overreach, in my opinion. And that's not me being political. I don't care who was involved in this. We have enough domestic issues to handle. We should applaud other countries growing and surviving on their own. The changes that have taken place, and the human rights thing, I think that got tied in because of the deportations, the immigration, and all the other things. That will have to play its way out. But to try to toss in that their monetary policy is this, that's insane to me. It just doesn't make sense to me. This is, like I said, democratization of money, the people's currency. You can't stop a momentum of a train like this, no matter who you are, or where you're at. It doesn't matter who you are. Sorry, a little bit of, you got me there. You pulled at my heartstrings there, because I've been such a fan. I met a whole bunch of people from El Salvador and Nashville at the Bitcoin conference last year, and they have nothing but amazing things to say about the change in their quality of life since this change. And if I'm a human at the end of the day, I'm an American, but I'm a human at the end of the day, and I applaud a higher standard of living and a quality of living for anybody in the world.
Yeah, if you haven't been to El Salvador, I highly recommend. The people there, they're happy. Their life has changed night and day. You really, to go from a country that was ruled by violence to one that is peaceful, you really can't put a price tag on that. And so,
wait till you see the foreign direct investment that comes in, because FDI always follows stability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like Panama was quote unquote stable, even though we placed Noriega there many years ago. And you watched you can just look at the maps. It went from rural to skyscrapers, right? Look at Dubai, foreign direct investment. It went from a desert to one of the largest metropolitan areas. I wouldn't be surprised to see in a short time period, maybe within a decade, where that is an epicenter of Central America.
Well, you're seeing it now. Google built a tower in San Salvador, and Tether has put down plans to build a 70-story skyscraper, becoming a top 10 skyscraper within all of Latin
It's
America,
so
right?
crazy, Rob. It's Mark Twain said it best. History doesn't repeat itself, but damn it, sure rhymes, doesn't it? It,
Mhm.
it really does.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's taken a lot of lessons, Bukele that is, from Singapore, and he seems to be replicating it, right? Make sure it's
Yep.
peaceful, a good place for business, the investment will come, and the people will flourish, and that is what we're seeing. And let's jump back into the headlines and go into the market section here. And it's just one
I'm sorry that
mind-blowing.
I go on these tangents on every line. I know you got an agenda, Rob, but this is such a great show, such a great audience. I love to share my insights. So I'm sorry if we messed up your agenda a little bit.
No worries, man. That's what you're here for, right? We love to get the perspective of our guests. We rotate every single week, have somebody new on board here with me, and that's the point, right? To get these true feelings and insights from unique people like you in the scene who have been here for a while and know what they're talking about. And I would love your input on this one. BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF now holds over 700,000 Bitcoin, 3.5% of the total circulating supply, making it the fastest ETF to reach 80 billion in assets under management, 5 times faster than the previous record. And this is a chart that speaks a
I love
thousand
this chart. I
words.
saw this morning. It's unreal. It's crazy. You talk about internet adoption, right? And you look at
Mhm.
the charts against it. I mean, you're talking when you look at this, just so everybody can see, the bottom, the horizontal axis is day 1 to day 2001. So for all the other major ETFs, which have done incredible things, we're talking about VOD and IEFA and IEMG. They've been access to things that have never been accessible before. Just that gap between what it took to hit those points, where are we going to be next, is a really big question. And I'm not, just so everybody knows, I'm a fan of direct investment with crypto. So if I'm going to buy, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Pepe, whatever it might be, I like to hold the real thing, and I love to hold it in my Roth IRA because that's the best place, in my opinion, for tax advantage. ETFs are awesome, and you can see this amazing growth on them. But ETFs at the end of the day are proxy certificates. It's kind of, I've always joked, it's kind of like putting gas in a Tesla. It doesn't quite make sense. You know, you have this access to this amazing technology. It's easy to do direct investment, but this is where scarcity is going to kick in, because you're talking about, in just a matter of less than just over a year, $80 billion in this. And if that exponential growth rate continues to grow, we will start seeing supply shock a lot sooner than I expected. I think I was expecting 2028 where we would start seeing some real supply shock on Bitcoin, because it's, for the first time, I think in about 7 years, it'll be the first time that miners are competing for less than one Bitcoin. I think that this behavior and these institutional flows are going to change that entire timeline. Is what when I saw this chart, I had to look at it a few times, because I'm like, wow, that almost feels like somebody did the math wrong, but it's not. This is, the math checks out. This is a mind blowing chart that we're going to look back at in the next 3, 6, 9 months, and be even more shocked about what'll happen next. Is what's the gap between peak for other ETFs and where Bitcoin is in the next 180 days or 360 days. And the adoption rate between different ETF angles will be interesting to watch in the next couple months.
Yeah, and if you look at the updated numbers from this morning, this has now hit 88 billion, right? With just the latest pump that we've seen. So this is from last week, and we've added another $8 billion on top of this.
You know, just 8 billion. I guess Elon might have been involved on that one.
And I mean, this is their BlackRock's top performing ETF in terms of the fees that they're able to recoup from this, right? So they love this. They want to push this more. And if you look at the numbers, I mean, so 700,000 Bitcoin is 3.5% of the supply. Sailor this morning just crossed over 600,000 Bitcoin. That's another 3%. And then Satoshi, at least people think it's Satoshi's Bitcoin, the 1 million there, that's a little over 4%. So those three entities alone, BlackRock, Michael Saylor, and Satoshi, own 10% of all the Bitcoin. This is a very scarce asset, and people really haven't realized that you can't make more of it, right? That number is pretty set, and these guys are gobbling it up. So you better get yours before it's too late.
Get your sats, man, because you're not going to be kicking yourself. I remember it was funny when we first started Bitcoin IRA back in 2015. When we were doing settlements, we were learning things, and so we were. If you were liquidating something, we couldn't, because of the infirmities of the technology steps at the time, we couldn't exactly liquidate 100%. We had to leave a dust amount. And what was dust 10 years ago is $20,000 today. Like to leave 0.05 Bitcoin or even 2 ETH or whatever it was so that we could settle these things. And I remember us consolidating these wallets in for clients, and I was like, man, this is something you don't normally see in any investment vehicle is we haven't, like you and I and a lot of folks here, we understand this scarcity. I would say over 60% of just Americans don't gather this concept. They don't actually get this concept of scarcity because most of us, like I was saying, were raised in a world of abundance to where what I remember when I was a kid in high school and I was like, man, if I could just make $100,000 a year, I'd be rich. I'd be set. I'd be upper class. In most states in the union now, to make 100,000, you're middle class. In some states, you're lower middle class, and because of the rising cost of everything. I encourage people to look at, and Brian Decker, if you haven't checked him out, I recommend everybody here. He's a good friend of mine from Scottsdale. He runs the Wealth Society, and he did a great piece. He used to be a big real estate guy, lending guy, et cetera, and pivoted hard into Bitcoin about 4 years ago. And him and I became friends, and he always explains his aha moment was he was like, man, I owned all these real estate properties and I was thrilled. The Biden administration was helping me get rich because the value of my real estate was going up and up and up. And there's a lot of Americans sitting here. I'm watching just the boomers that are sitting on houses they bought for $100,000 that are now worth 1.4, 1.5 million. It's just because there's so much dollars at play. It's not that. So price things in Bitcoin. Price things in terms of Bitcoin, and the average house of 410,000 now is gone down drastically in terms of Bitcoin. So hodling something that's scarce is going to make your life and your retirement more manageable. Is something that for me, other than the halving, the pricing of things in Bitcoin. I mean, I've been just like everybody here. I'm not some genius that knew everything about Bitcoin 12 years ago. I have slowly and surely done my homework and had my aha moments. And this is something that we're still ahead of the curve, because I think a lot of Americans are going to be in a place where they're going to go, holy crap, I didn't realize you weren't kidding. There's only 21 million of these things. And then the last ones aren't even going to be mined until you and I are dead. Like maybe my daughter will still be alive, but we'll be gone by the time the last ones get mined. I think 2140 is the expectation right now, something like that. We'll be long gone, buddy. And so when you can't mine anymore any faster, it's not like the printers at the Federal Reserve. We can't just press a button and make more money. This is going to be an exciting next few years watching that. It's a paradigm shift of people's mentality. It is a paradigm shift that is going to have an impact. Nothing gets me more excited, honestly.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be a part of and to witness, and not only just number go up, but also just the feeling of, yeah, we were right. We were right.
Well, I hate to say I told you so, but when Thanksgiving comes around, because we've all been through. If you're a Bitcoin guy, you've been through about 3 or 4 Thanksgivings with family. And I remember like the first one, my dad was like, I remember my favorite meme was like, Dad says, hey, can you help me with this Coinbase? This is 2017, right? Hey, help me with this Coinbase app. And then by Christmas, Dad had missed out because he didn't actually get the job done, download and buy anything. He's like, this is all your fault. And I laughed about that because I remember telling people at Thanksgiving, Halloween that year. And by Christmas, New Year's, they're like, oh, I missed out. And my favorite meme is that line of people that are walking to buy it at 200,000 is 10 times longer than the line of people that were getting in at X dollars. And we're having other holiday seasons coming up. So prepare yourselves. Mentally do your breathing exercises, because you're going to get a lot of conversations about Bitcoin. If anybody knows you're a Bitcoin person or a Bitcoin believer, you're going to get inundated with this. And what I always say constantly is get off zero. I try not to say I told you so. You could just grin a little bit and they know it. But also make sure that they're doing their research. The biggest thing, I think, we as crypto believers, we all have a responsibility to avoid people walking into pitfalls. One of the things that just drives me crazy is when I hear the next Bitcoin of any coin out there. I've heard it for XRP. I've heard it for Ondo. I've heard all these. if you don't understand the utility of the token, I do invest, I'm not just a maxi, I do invest in all 85 of the coins that we offer on the platform because I'm a tester. And some of them I like a little bit more than others. But if XRP was to get to Bitcoin's value, it would become obsolete in many ways to its utility. Its utility is designed to replace SWIFT and bank payments and settlements. If it's too expensive, it won't be able to do that. Plus, it's got I don't even know what its actual supply, its in supply is. But hardly any of these have fixed supplies to them in any way, shape, or form. So nothing is the next Bitcoin. At the end of the day, that's the one maxi statement I would say. There will be no next Bitcoin. There's going to be some amazing things that come out of the crypto universe over the next few years. And there's already some amazing things underway. But whenever I hear somebody say, oh, what's the next Bitcoin? Right there, I'm like, time out. There is no next Bitcoin. If nothing else, I know that people always think, oh, it's so expensive to get into. There's divisibility. You can go to the 10th or 11th decimal point. You can get your Satoshis. You can stack your sats. And if you're going to do anything, I know that we're going to run out of time here soon. I just wanted to toss in for all the audience the importance, if you are a believer or you're looking at this, do your annual contribution for your IRAs. Put it into the cryptos that you love. Use the tax advantage settings. The government gives it to us every year. It expires every year. It gives you the ability, if we went from, we have clients that have gone and bought Bitcoin at $250 a Bitcoin, and now they're here. And they did that entirely tax-free along the way, without gains taxes, distributions, etc. Use these tools to your advantage. And we have a great incentive for the Bitcoin News program, all of your followers, whether your newsletter, YouTube, Twitter Space, etc. You can call we're real crypto, real people. So you can call our number, 877-936-7175. I know, I memorized that over 12 years. And you'll talk to a real human being about your retirement needs with crypto. We're really proud of this because retirement is not a one size fits all. You don't need some chatbot or some robot to tell you how to do these things. Now, yeah, my robots will call you to tell you happy birthday every year. But when you're onboarding and you're getting ready for your first retirement, it's important. And we've got a great incentive. I think it's up to, last I heard, you can save, you can be rewarded. So you'll get up to $1,000 cash back for opening an account from now until Labor Day. It's part of our Summer of Freedom that we're doing right now. So take advantage of the IRS rules, take advantage of our rewards, and take advantage of tax-deferred savings in Bitcoin. That's my shill. I'm sorry. I love you guys. I just had to put it out there because my passion, my excitement.
Yeah. A question I had is, what's the lowest amount you can get started with?
$1,000 is our minimum. And
Cool.
if you're, and just so folks know, if you're contributing, so if you're adding funds to your IRA for the fiscal year, if you're under 50, it's $7,500 is your max. If you're over 50, you get to do what they call a catch up, and you can do 8,000 is your capacity. Now, if you have a big thing, if you have an old roll, a 401k, a lot of people change jobs nowadays. And especially in the gig economy, people are moving everywhere. If you have an old 401k, 403b, 457a, pension, etc., sitting it from an old job, I always call this like leaving your favorite hoodie at your ex-girlfriend's or ex-boyfriend's house. It's silly. Like, that's your favorite hoodie. Don't leave it behind. Roll it over and put it into the crypto that you love and you believe in. Again, our folks can help you with those tools. We have an entire team of specialists that have been with me for some of them over a decade that have helped thousands of people open, fund, and then inevitably self-direct trade their retirement accounts.
Giving power back to the people, in the people's money, Bitcoin. And at the end of each show, we like to hand out some Bitcoin, get some people's money into the hands of the people. So in our newsletter every single week, we have a trivia question. This is this week's question. If you listen to what we were saying,
21,000 sats. You guys, you're going to go bankrupt.
It's yeah. I mean, I'm sure we're going to look back in about 5 or 10 years from now and be like, oh my God, we gave away a down payment on a house in terms of all these trivia. But hey, it's how it goes, right? You got to send the stats around.
We had a promo in 2018 where we gave away 100,000 Shiba for every new account.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually worked out really well for people that just held that over time. So sorry, I'll let you go forward in your wheel of fun here. I'm so excited. This is cool.
Let's rip it. Yes, let's see who won from last week's correct answer of the trivia question. And this one is Brian D. Mavis. Awesome. Hope you're watching live. Don't worry if you're not. We'll reach out to you and make sure you get those sats. But yes, take part in our trivia question every single week. We make sure that our community gets paid in Bitcoin. And so yes, that's one thing. Let's leave on this news story here. Remix Point is now the first Japanese public company to pay its CEO entirely in Bitcoin, aligning executive compensation with its over 1,000 Bitcoin treasury. So, what do you think about paying in Bitcoin, paying your employees, and you yourself getting paid in Bitcoin? Are any of these on your radar?
So there's the NFL guy that asked for it. I can't remember the name. A few years back, he asked for
A
his
couple.
rookie contract to be paid in Bitcoin, and I think he has held it. I don't think he's
Mhm.
being public about it, but I think he has held it. And man, I mean, talk about, yeah, with the NFL, you only have so many years, right? Especially as a running back, is the shortest career you have. And to turn that into where he's at now, like that's he'll probably be, if you took the math, he'll probably be one of the highest paid NFL players of the decade because he made it in that decision. We have done, as a business, we have done bonuses in crypto. We've done distributions. We hold a treasury as well, in Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and other coins. So I know that Tupac and Biggie say don't get high on your own supply, but it's almost impossible not to in your operating process as a Bitcoin company. Um, that is, I think that's amazing. It's I mean, obviously there's volatility ahead, so don't be surprised. I mean, there's a risk to this too. If you pay, say you get paid $100,000 a year, and you don't spend any of it, and then this thing pulls back and you're getting paid, I mean, the beauty is it's kind of like dollar cost averaging in its own way, right? Because if you get paid $5,000 a month and every month you're getting a piece of Bitcoin, you're automatically building out that. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of the big tech start making this a piece of their incentive programs. Because shares, B shares, equity shares, profit sharing, these have all been things to attract the largest amount of talent. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of the groups like Nvidia and other AI big players, other big crypto big players, Coinbase perhaps, Google, others, to use this as an incentive strategy of saying we actually pay in Bitcoin or any crypto of your choice. There was one of the big Bitcoin players actually just pivoted their entire treasury to Ethereum. That was in the news last week. I know, ballsy move, a little crazy, a little bit of everything. Diversification is key. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, this is where now, imagine if you got a company out there that's paying out, say their annual salary is 60 to $100 million, and they're paying 50% of it in Bitcoin. They've got to continuously replenish the coffers. Once they make a payroll, they've got to go get more Bitcoin for the next payroll and the next payroll. Again, more demand. This is the financialization of this asset class. So I think it's pretty cool. And I do you remember the NFL player? Because I want to go look him up after
Yeah,
this.
a couple of them. Saquon Barkley is the rookie
Barkley,
contract you're
that's
talking
right.
about. Okung, as well as Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, a lot of guys in the NFL have gotten paid in Bitcoin because you're right, their careers are relatively short and they need to make the most of it, and Bitcoin is the way to do that. So amazing. Chris, what an awesome hour. Thank you so much for joining us today. If people
Hey,
want to
thank
learn
you
more,
guys for having me. I've been and seen the notes too. Just a few shout outs to Guaki. It looks like Guaki M, you're a client of ours. Awesome. Pamela Posada, thank you for the kind notes. I think I also saw somebody say, was
Chris
it Chris
Edwards, so
Edwards?
bullish.
Yeah, thank you for all your There's nothing better than to come and do this and get that instant feedback that we're doing the right thing. So thank you guys all for being here and being engaged.
Cheers. Yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you, Chris. Hey, go over, check out Bitcoin IRA, and save your retirement in Bitcoin. It's probably the smartest thing you could do. All right, everybody, have a great week. We'll be back next Monday. See you then. Bye bye, Chris.